tuned for the Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Agajanian Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Waiting to be profiled is author Peter Lefcourt and furniture designer Ric Lee. Native New Yorker Peter Lefcourt has traveled the world, living in Togo, West Africa, Rome, Italy, and France, all through France, and all the while returning to LA, which he calls his home. He's been here a long time. And he's written 5 novels, but along with the books, he's a distinguished producer and writer of film and TV. Peter won an Emmy for Cagney and Lacey, and we're happy to have you, Peter.
I'm delighted to be here, Joan. I'm always nervous when someone calls me distinguished, though, because then I feel I have to be distinguished.
I like that word, don't you?
Okay. Well, I'll take it.
I had to fill in because I didn't know what colleges you'd gone to and what you'd done before you started traveling.
Well, the usual apprenticeship of a writer.
Which?
You know, waiting on tables, driving a cab in New York.
I see.
In fact, one of the 11 Karens takes place while I was a cab driver in New York, so it's a good training for a writer.
That's what I was going to ask you. Also, all the travel, did that make good information for your writing?
Oh, absolutely. You know, the world is a university, and the book is really a coming-of-age story of a man. It starts in the 5th grade.
We're going to talk about 11 Karens.
Okay.
This is the book that he's just written for Simon & Schuster, and I was leading up to this novel because you've written 5 other novels, and you've written a lot of TV, and I wondered what's the difference writing a novel and writing for TV?
Well, they treat the help a lot better in the novel business. I've written a lot of television. I've had a great time writing television. I did Cagney and Lacey. I did a show for Showtime called Beggars and Choosers that was on for 2 years.
Oh, right, with Tartikoff.
It was about Brandon Tartikoff. It was a story. He was one of the co-creators, but poor Brandon died before the show was on the air.
Oh, so he didn't get to know. It was a successful show.
Yes, it was a cult success. We were on for 2 years. We had a lot of fun. We were satirizing television. I did a lot of television movies. I've written a miniseries called Monte Carlo, which we shot in France with the inimitable Joan Collins. I remain the only writer who has kept Joan Collins in the same wardrobe for 35 pages.
Had you been to Monte Carlo before?
Yeah.
And so you knew where you wanted to set your...
I had an apartment in Paris for about 12 years, and I would go there every April, May, and June and just live my life. I would work in Hollywood, make money, and then go spend it over there.
I see. So in the 90s, it seems like the 90s is when you did the bulk of your work, the heavy, The Deal you wrote.
I wrote The Deal in '91. I wrote The Deal at a time when my television career had gone south. Everybody's television career goes south now and then. It's part of the flora and fauna of the business. And I wrote a kind of dark, hand-biting novel about Hollywood called The Deal, and perversely that kind of reawakened my reputation, so I started working again. I did movies for HBO and for Showtime.
But weren't they afraid of what you had said in The Deal, that you were exposing people?
I don't think so. The Deal is a kind of a gentle comedy. It really is. Yeah, you can only satirize something well that I think you really love. That's one of my theories about satire. To do it right, you just have to tell the satire is really the art of just telling the truth. It's just tilting the mirror a little bit to reality. Once you start inventing too much, then the satire doesn't work.
Oh. So you actually worked with real situations when you were writing, just putting a different spin on it?
Yes, in fact, that book is just out new. There's a new edition of The Deal through Washington Square Press. It's being promoted with 11 Karens. It had been out of print since '96, and it was this cult book that everybody loved but nobody could get, but now it's back in the bookstores and online.
Oh, good.
After the deal, I wrote a book called The Dreyfus Affair, which is probably my best-known book. It's also a comedy about two baseball players who fall in love and create the scandal.
And now, on Broadway, off-Broadway, Take Me Out is about a gay baseball player. Not now, but after your thing was written, I guess.
The Dreyfus Affair is probably one of my books is the one that is the best known. It's in its 15th printing in paperback, and I still get a lot of mail on it. And one of these days, I hope in my lifetime, it will become a movie. We've gotten very close a couple of times, and every time it looks like it's about to happen, something goes wrong.
But now baseball is very trendy, so maybe it'll just jump to the top.
Well, that would be nice. It's really not about baseball. It's about how does baseball deal with this fact that these two ball players fall in love. It's about the homophobia in baseball, and it's about, this is a simple love story. Boy meets boy. And it's funny, and it's kind of tender, and then I wrote Di and I about the poor Princess Diana.
Did you write Di and I before Abbreviating Ernie?
Yes, Di and I was number 3, and it was really, I went over to England to do a television movie about the British royal family, and I wrote the movie was made, and I came home and I said, there must be another reason why I know all this trivia about Princess Diana, and so I wrote a book. The fiction, the premise being that a television writer goes over there to write a movie, falls in love with her, and they run away together and they start a McDonald's in Cucamonga. That
was going to be a movie?
That was actually developed by Fine Line for a while, and then poor Diana left us in '97, and so I don't think that's going to be a movie.
Oh, so do you think, was it going to be it wasn't going to be a miniseries?
No, it was. In fact, there is a movie called The Women of Windsor that I must admit I wrote.
You did work on that.
That was done in 1992.
I think you said, how much can you write about the British royal family, right?
Well, how much, anyway. Then there was Abbreviating Ernie. The less said about that, the better. It's actually,
which was about you?
Well, it was about how I got famous for about 11 minutes.
Oh, you fell short of Warhol's.
I missed the 15 minutes because Di and I was a bit of a scandal in England, and so the tabloids were calling me, and I was on the front of newspapers in London. I was on Entertainment Tonight. And I just wanted to write a book about how people get famous for all the wrong reasons, and I write a book about a woman who gets famous for committing a domestic crime against her husband, and she becomes a feminist role model for all the wrong reasons, and the whole game behind that. And then I did a movie for HBO based on the Bob Packwood scandal, and I decided to write a book about politics and sex, and the book that came out in '97 was called The Woody, about a senator from Vermont trying to get reelected.
I see.
And unfortunately it was opposite the Clinton scandal, so it was very hard to compete with the real thing.
That's funny. I mean, it's funny, the timing and how important timing is when you're doing things, because your ideas are ahead of what's happening in the world, and you've written it, and then all of a sudden the world catches up with you and takes over.
And you have no control over it.
I know. But you wrote 11 Karens. Is it fact or fiction?
Well,
or were all of these fact or fiction?
Well, 11 Karens is faction. How's that?
That's good.
The one thing I don't have to worry about is I don't think events will take over. I wanted to write a book about women. I just love women. I wanted to write a book about women, and I decided to write a book about the women in my life. And for some reason, I've been involved with an inordinate number of Karens. I don't know why, but somehow there's been a lot of Karens in my life. So
you didn't make that name up so that you could use it as a vehicle to tell this story?
There are lots of Karens in the world. In fact,
but how could you find 11 of them?
Well, I started in the 5th grade, as I say. It starts with a mock marriage in the 5th grade in somebody's garage.
That is so funny.
And like I was a deer in the headlights. I was 10 years old, and the girls in the class decided somebody had to get married, and so it was me. And then it goes to high school with a cheerleader named Karen. Oh, okay.
Go back to the 5th grade, because like 10 years old, it was really hilarious, I thought, the way it was written. But I think the funniest thing was the President Eisenhower story that you tell during that chapter.
Well, that was merely an anecdote. That one of those pieces of misinformation that your friends tell you. At the time, people said that Eisenhower had an artificial heart, and it had to be plugged into the wall to get recharged every night. And the only people who knew about it were Mamie and the Secret Service.
But you knew about it because you were telling the story.
I was 10 years old. I knew everything. It's funny that since that, people who have read the book have said, almost a lot of guys have come up to me and said, I got married also in the 5th grade. I got roped into a mock marriage, yeah. But anyway, the
I thought
book.
people were playing doctor then.
Well, this was a form of doctor.
This was like the next point, right?
You start with doctor and you go to getting married. You know, I think that one way you could define your life is through the prism of your lovers, and so this is a form of autobiography. It's also social history. A lot of this takes place in the 60s and the 70s, and there's stuff in there about the Vietnam War and about Watergate.
And I think the descriptions, the sets, and where you're traveling and what you're doing, I think really draws that period, and it's very vivid when you're writing about it.
Well, one of the Karens is in Togo in West Africa, and I was in the Peace Corps in Togo in the West Africa.
That's why you were there.
So I spent 2 years, two of the most fascinating years of my life in West Africa. There's a Togo. I was in Europe when I was very young, wandering around. And I fell in love with this Karen in Rome, and it was that first wonderful time when you just fall head over heels in love with, and you can't even walk straight. It's a great moment in everybody's life, that first love affair that you keep with you. You sort of have a badge that you wear for the rest of your life. And she became a Karen. Then there's a Karen, I was teaching at a private school in New York, and this Karen has to remain last nameless because she was underage, though she had lied to me about her age. So I never name her last name nor the name of the school. But she's a Karen nonetheless.
You have 11 Karens. It should be a movie. Do you think it'll be a movie?
I think it'd be a great movie because.
Who would you cast? I mean, it's such a great movie for women because there's so many wonderful roles.
Absolutely. I think I would start off, you get 11 of the best actors in the world. They're always complaining there are not enough roles for them.
Exactly, that's what I was going to say.
You get Nicole Kidman, you get Julianne Moore, you get Meryl Streep, you get Michelle Pfeiffer, you get Cameron Diaz. Put them all in the same movie.
We've only got 5 so far. We've got a couple more. We can get some child actors for the...
Drew Barrymore. We can just name
Perfect.
11 fabulous. Julia Roberts, why not?
And who could be the narrator? Who is Peter Lefcourt, I think.
Well, you have to age him a little bit. I don't think I can play it myself. No, I'm not an actor, but who would I mean, we could probably get Kevin Costner. People said I have a vague resemblance to Kevin Costner, but anyway, these stories basically take place in my 20s and 30s. I'm not 20 and 30 anymore.
But the story goes back, and I think when you talk about period movies, and period movies are very well thought of right now. It takes all these different periods into consideration.
No, I think it'd be a wonderful movie. So far, I don't know if this is a comment on Hollywood or comment on my books, but I'm 0 for 6.
You mean no movies out of 6?
Well, they keep getting optioned, but they don't seem to get made. Many are called, I guess, and few are chosen. But I think, what happens, Hollywood's a funny place, and one gets picked up, and the next thing you know. But to be honest with you, like most book writers, I just love writing books. Whether they become movies or not, that's just gravy. The fact that a book exists, the fact that people read it, it's a joy being a writer, to know that people take your book into bed with them, into the bathtub with them. It's a very intimate and personal relationship you have with your readers, and it's something that I really enjoy.
That's really true, too. And I'm glad that you're writing, and keep writing. And thank you for being with us today, Peter Lefcourt. I think we got him before. He's been doing these readings all around town at very she bookstores, great bookstores. Thanks, Peter.
My pleasure, Joan.
And don't go away, because we'll be right back with furniture designer Ric Lee, who designed the Colleen chair on the set. I'm Joan Quinn, and we're back for the Joan Quinn Profiles, and I'm here with furniture designer Ric Lee, who was born in Korea, but of Chinese parentage. He came to the Midwest when he was a teenager and earned a degree from the University of Illinois in industrial design, and then opened his design offices and worked in Chicago, and soon after found yourself where?
Well, actually, after that, I went to Milan.
You went to Milan?
Yes.
The home of industrial design.
Yes, and architecture, and it was really one of the most profound area to work as a designer.
Why'd you go to Milan?
Well, I thought that it just kind of opened up another dimension of knowledge in design.
Did you know people, or was there a reason to?
There's reason. I mean, I had a friend working in Chicago with me for a little bit, and then he has a good connection in Milan who actually worked as an architect in Milan, who invited us to do some project, and we went there and just. Without knowing much better, just to kind of check out the area, and also, of course, knowing that's the most interesting area to study and also work as a designer. But one thing leads to another. I end up actually staying there, working about 2.5 years.
What does industrial design prepare you for?
Prepares me to design almost anything need to be redesigned and explored into new areas. So
was it different in Europe than in America? The things you were changing or designing?
Yes, it's quite different, especially in terms of the mentality of the taste, and as well as I guess romancing each project, because in this country everything is much more I guess production oriented, and it's a lot more fast paced.
And to get a lot of things out instead of 2 or 3 things?
Right. Well, I think in Italy, it's just like lifestyle, also kind of reflects the way people think and the way people kind of thinking is much related into the lifestyle, I think. So that from that sense, for a designer's point of view, it's very, very, I guess we're coordinated in terms of those 2 areas. Yeah.
And from there, did you go to San Francisco? From Milan?
Yes, I did.
And then you went, and then you started a studio in San Francisco.
I did. Yes. Well, my wife is from San Francisco. I mean, I wasn't married to her at that time. So, yeah, San Francisco was calling because of love.
Oh, because of love. Oh, you'd already met her.
Yes. I've been dating with her about 10 years prior to that.
Oh,
long distance. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So that's what took you to San Francisco, and that was the reason we designed the Colleen chair.
Exactly.
Because your wife, Colleen Quinn.
Yes, it took about 10 years to design this chair.
Did it?
Well, I always wanted to design a chair inspired. By my wife.
Tell us why and how this is inspired, and the different elements that go into this. I saw you put this chair together when you put it on the set.
Yes. I want to kind of reflect her personality into this chair, not just to name a chair, for my wife. So I really wanted to design this chair that kind of evokes her personality. It's a very romantic kind of idea. It's kind of like writing a poem to your wife. Since I'm not a poet, but I can say I can conduct a poem
as you talk.
When it comes to design, this is sort of my poetry for my wife, and also if you can see the rug,
below goes along with it.
The rug is actually die cut into like bunch of circles. I mean, that kind of represents her bubbly personality. So I kind of give that kind of a nice sense.
And the color?
The color is her favorite color.
Is it?
It's actually magenta.
So
of course I have to have her approval as well, because this is something that she, and also she's a fashion designer. So it was quite a difficult chair to really all come together.
And can you sit in it? Is it comfortable?
Yes, definitely. I mean, it's a very delicate looking chair, but at the same time, it does have ergonomic thought process into it as well.
When you started your own studio in San Francisco, did you have assignments? Were you working with different companies? How do you get known as a designer?
Well, I actually I kind of have 2 different areas when it comes to furniture design. This Colleen chair is primarily for my own personal kind of I guess approach in design. It's kind of like I guess independent filmmaking versus Hollywood filmmaking.
I see.
So I don't really have a big budget who's supporting me in this kind of project, but I have a lot of freedom to do almost whatever I want.
But do people come to you, furniture companies come to you, or do they buy what you've done?
Both.
So
Both,
say
actually.
this table,
This liquid table.
this
yeah.
liquid table, and I know why it's a liquid table. I think it's great. It looks like a nail polish that's spilled
Yes,
on the
yes, yes.
table.
Thank you. Or you can call
And
it
the bottom looks
drop
great.
of milk. I mean, if you call it that way.
It's metal.
This is metal. This is solid cast aluminum, and then I actually have this like a powder coat finish over it. It can be like natural polished aluminum as well as painted.
So it
finish.
also comes in a silver color and a
red,
red,
yeah,
bright red.
Great for Halloween.
Great,
Drop of
bright
blood.
red. And looking at this and looking at the table and looking, I wanted to show the chandelier. This, did I have it upside down? No.
No,
The
got it right,
chandelier.
yeah.
Tell us about this. Everything seems to be so organic in feeling.
In a way, it is. I mean, well, especially this. I mean, this piece is called Fire. I mean, it is sort of organically nature-ish kind of inspired piece. Me and my wife, Colleen, well, she's a fashion designer, first of all. I mean, we did a fashion and furniture exhibition a couple of years ago based on the 5-element theme. So this is one of the elements, which is fire, earth, metal, water, and and metal, exactly.
What I was going to do also is just show this Colleen
reverse.
chair again, just to show how, if you saw it in your book, how it would look, because I think this gives a difference of how we can use it on the set and how it actually
Exactly.
looks when you come out of the design studio. So with the chandelier, what pieces did you use that brought the chandelier together?
What do you mean, what piece? You mean in terms of material? or-
Yes.
Well, chandelier, that piece is basically, I use acrylic tubes, which is extremely ready-made available kind of material. And then I also used just a very, very clean idea of using simple light bulb and socket, and also showing the wires, inside of the tube. So idea of this.
But the wires are gold, aren't they?
It is gold.
Did
It
you
is.
have to change the wiring, or does it come like that?
Well, the wiring is I chose a vintage wire, which
that's
is
why.
which is kind of gold color, and the idea of that is celebration of electricity. So it's just
I
a
see.
very straightforward idea, but also very different at the same time.
I see. Okay, I'm going to show another lamp because I love this lamp.
I do too. That one.
I've got all these things going here.
This is-
I love this lamp. It looks
Thank
like
you.
a wig. It looks like a woman in a wig.
Actually, if you think of it, sure, it can be a wig, yeah. Or some people call it like strings of spaghetti.
Yeah, but I looked at it and I went, I could wear that on my head. That's great.
Well, the idea of this one is that it was actually designed for the San Francisco Opera opening party last year, which is a very, very big piece. The 9 feet tall lamp. It was featured in the city hall for them to party after the opera and after dinner. It's a post-lounge kind of space.
How
that
many
was
did you
designed.
make?
I made 3 of these. Yeah.
And so they
3.
were dispersed within the dining area, or where they went afterwards?
Yes, after dining, they go to this place for them to lounge and party and dance.
I see.
So one night kind of event, and I use a rope light, which is ready-made kind of material, and then I use some metal parts.
And then you just drape it around the frame?
I just draped around it, and
Does it give light, actually, or is it just...
It does. It comes in 7 different colors. If,
Oh, it does?
But I made it in pink because it was a theme of that evening, pink and red, and because rope light, you can buy them in 7 different colors. So I chose,
And it
one of them.
actually gives a good light, and it looks great.
It does. If I did make one in a sort of natural color, it's bright enough that you can read under it.
You can?
Yes.
Oh, that's a very innovative as well. And it doesn't take, as you were saying, a big budget to
Yes.
make these things.
Yes. Well, that piece was it was for a big event. However, because of time and also because this is sort of like a non-profit organization kind of event, more like a not donation, but it.
You want to keep the prices down?
Right,
I mean,
right,
keep
right.
the
Yeah, so I was the lack of time and budget that
budget down.
that's why you use ready-made, ready-found material, which is rope light. You can get them at hardware store. It comes in 150 feet long rope.
That's great. And then
Thanks.
one of the last pictures I want to show is the Swiss Army knife.
Yes.
We can't carry a Swiss Army knife on the airplanes anymore.
So that's been banned, yes.
But you made a couch.
I made a couch, yeah. Well, a lot of my inspiration is sort of coming from like everyday life, experiences, and also my surroundings. Like this piece, obviously, has come from a Swiss knife idea. So I wanted to design a couch that you can fold and unfold when you have a party.
Oh, it moves.
Yes, so 2 bottom layers, it just opens up and then can revolve.
Oh, I see. So the top picture is closed, and then it pulls. Oh, I see.
So yes, you can actually have these 2 bottom seating area, swivel 360 degrees.
Oh, I see.
So kind of like the idea of blade coming out of it. You can sit at 3 different levels. On the floor, of course, you can lean against the sofa, and also you can sit on, the
How
top
long
level.
is it?
This is about 10 feet long when it's closed.
When it's closed.
It's closed. So the whole idea about this is you can sit, the entire the sofa, not just the front of it. So the idea of this one piece can actually accommodate, like one room. All you need is one piece of furniture. You don't really have to have, 3, 4 chairs or one sofa.
Have you thought of going to work for a big company?
Actually, I do have a few manufacturers that I have worked with for the last 10 years. Those are my my everyday clientele. I mean, they are manufacturers.
Oh, I see.
I have a few from this country, and I have a few from Italy.
So you you do just certain things for them.
Yes.
And then you do your own whimsy and your own designs.
Exactly. My whimsy stuff is more of I would say it's a refuge, because it's like a laboratory in your own studio. It's more experimental. So it's a lot of times, like some of these ideas can bring down into larger production.
I see.
So I mean, those are I would consider Hollywood production, because there's more larger audiences, so that requires bigger production.
So that's great. And I'm so glad Ric Lee came down from San Francisco today, and you brought the Colleen chair and you brought the liquid table. Is that what it's called? Yeah.
Yes, liquid table.
Liquid table. And it was very nice having you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
And I thank Attila and Slav for doing this portrait. And I thank all of you for watching the Joan Quinn Profiles today. Keep riding to 777 South Figueroa, 44th floor, Los Angeles 917. And we'll see you next time on the Joan Quinn Profiles.